Oh, I thought you're gonna start off.
Oh, should I start off? Okay.
Just give that.
All right.
I thought right to left.
Oh, okay, yeah, of course.
Last week, technically, you started. Let him start this week.
Oh, yeah, it's turn by turn. Okay, but the thing is, I'm on
Compromise, bro.
Okay.
Or I'll start. No.
Go ahead. You start.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Come on,
no,
you
no,
have to
no,
start.
no.
You have to start. Yo,
No.
you offered. It's too late.
No, I was messing with you guys. I don't
You
know.
don't
I don't know
start?
what to say. Yeah.
Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's Deed. That's all I said.
That's it. That's all it took.
I don't think we should start like that.
Okay, I'll start. I'll start.
Alright.
Me, you, him.
Okay.
Go again?
No, keep going.
Alright.
I think you have to add in your last name too.
No.
You got. We got.
That was I ate lasagna already.
That's not what I said.
Yeah. Ready? Okay.
Okay. You don't have to get too close.
I know.
Be relaxed. Be
Alright.
relaxed.
Alright. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God indeed. My name is Muhammad.
My name's Abu Bakr.
My name is Muhammad too.
As you guys can see, mashallah, we have a very famous celebrity. They call him Mr. Bay Ridge, even though he lives in Dyker Heights. Wait, you live in there, right?
I don't live in Dyker Heights, and they don't call me Mr. Bay Ridge, so.
Bad intro already. But anyway,
Great start.
anyways, it doesn't matter where he's from. He's our close friend. I known him since the Islamia days, which is my middle school. For about maybe almost 10 years.
Longer than a decade too, yeah.
Yeah, longer than a decade,
12.
subhanAllah. And wallahi, every single time like we're in your presence, like wallahi, we really have...
In my presence, come
No,
on.
I mean, I don't want to like
guys.
I feel the love. Like that's wallahi, that's what I'm trying to say.
It's always there. It's like we don't even need to talk about it. It's
Exactly.
just always like it doesn't matter how long we stay apart. Every time we're together, it's like we were together for the past
Exactly. What wallahi, he
For
just
every
summarized
day.
what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Alright.
Just like my friends like Basil and Harith, even though Harith is in Indiana, Basil is in he does like NYT medical school. Like even though we only hang out once a year, you feel that love. So
That's true.
it's the same thing with you.
The
Yeah,
love is still
alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And also I have a close connection with you, and it became closer via the halaqa.
Right.
Me and you were alhamdulillah like running the youth program for a year and I'll just say 2 years, because it was like a year and 11 months, but the only reason we stopped it was because it was in February that the corona happened and the pandemic started and stuff like that. So those 2 years, alhamdulillah, we did grow closer. Me, you, of course we can't forget our beloved teacher, Muhammad Rame. And I mean, honestly, even though the last time we ran it was... Wow, it's almost about to hit a year.
It's almost a year since we had our last session together, and everything.
No, well, I just
unexpectedly
remembered
came.
that. Wow.
Yeah, it was. It's definitely when you think back on it, it's almost like it's hard to imagine that we actually came together, no masks on, and actually we got so close, like 60 people in like one room.
Yeah, it smelled bad. It smelled bad, bro.
So you had to scream at the kids to pop open the windows, like what happened here. But no, it was definitely beautiful memories.
And no regrets at all.
Definitely.
Wallahi, even though it was stressful. Even though it was at times, hey, I mean that's every year. You're not gonna have like.
That's the beauty of the journey, right? Like if it's not challenging, it's not testing. There's really no point in honestly walking the path. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you also I find something, if something is not challenging, it's not testing you, then are you really making a change or leaving an impact?
Just like a video game, if it's too easy, you
don't even think about it twice, right?
Exactly.
So it's leaving an impact requires you to challenge, requires you to be challenged and be tested, and that was definitely the case with us.
I don't know about for you, but it was one of the most challenging things I ever done in my life, honestly. Like I think about it till this day. Just now I have ever since we did that youth program together, I had a greater level of respect for teachers, shuyukh, and scholars.
100%.
When I see especially like Rami Kawas and Hamid Mathil, how they used to do it,
100%.
and Masakin, man, they used to go home tired. And then I still remember I used to go home tired too. We would sometimes play Overwatch.
Yeah. Those were the days, man.
Yeah.
We just go home and we just vent on the on Overwatch, and just wait.
We could have done this better.
Yeah.
This kid doesn't know. Man, those were really the days, and That's before I was married, and man, it was so weird. Cause like I went home playing video games, but now I go home from work, I just see my wife, and we just watch it. Yeah,
it's different times, and definitely
Similar time.
also the I have to say like the relationships we made with youth themselves, the kids. It was like honestly
worth every sweat.
It puts everything into perspective. Like
yes.
when I think about like being their age at that time, very. I don't know. It's almost I don't remember being their age, and people used to when they were old used to tell me like I don't remember being your age. I'm like how like I'm 7 right now. I remember everything, and honestly I don't remember what it was like to be 7, what it was like to be 8, and honestly so when you talk to these kids and they ask you about things and stuff, you build like this a relationship with them. It was honestly one of the best parts, having a relationship with these kids. Each one of them you need like a different relationship. One you could joke with, one you can mess around with, one you play video games with. It was very, very.
And we're still in contact with them.
They're all begging us to bring the halaqa back, and inshallah we got something in the works. But
no really inshallah. It's
inshallah.
A long and thoughtful process, but I think we can make it happen, man.
Inshallah. Hopefully,
is it a surprise? What
no,
is
it? If the certain variables work in our favor, inshallah, I think it's definitely doable. And I would do it in a heartbeat, man. Because like I said, I just enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
Having the pizza, having the trips.
Part.
We went bowling. We rented the pool place. We went to the movie theater. We went ice skating. We went paintballing. We did a lot of stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't remember. Yeah.
I do remember.
You were with us the whole time. That's crazy.
Part. It's been too long, man.
Honestly, it's been this year like one of the best parts of it. Like you had the time to sit down individually and just refresh, sort of press that reset button, and then now like you come back and like there's a lot of like I'm like I want to get things started again. Like I want to start doing more things. So definitely that's been the plus from a year sitting just at home, because now you just want to go out and press the reset button and everything, and you have everything in perspective.
Especially because now we know we did some certain mistakes.
Yeah.
So we know we could do it better the second time.
Yeah, time to reflect.
Time to reflect, exactly. One of the, sometimes like we bumped into kids that came to the halaqah that had no sense of right and wrong. They disrupted the halaqah. Yeah. Like they had no sense of accountability, and I think that's actually, subhanAllah, to segue into our main topic. The Day of Judgment. Right. When it comes to like accountability, like some of these kids, they couldn't differentiate between right and wrong. Like I would assume it came from the parents. Like many times, even the way children are raised, they have the latest iPhone. They don't know what pain is. They don't know what wrong is. What is it called? Their parents give them everything they want, anything they want, and they get to eat anything they want. That's why child obesity rates are going up. So I think a sense of accountability when putting it into a child, letting them know what's right and what's wrong and why it's wrong, and giving them a punishment and giving them a reward. But I would feel sometimes children are, all they're given is reward. There's no, I'm not saying like
no middle ground.
There's no middle ground, and there's like no even punishment. Like I said, I just see it in the street, like a child yelling at their parent, or like a parent can't even touch their child anymore. I'm not saying like I'm not saying like strangle them like Bart Simpson.
Spanking.
Yeah. Again, it's like when I did something wrong as a child, right? And let's say my dad hit me, right? Wait, was it your mom or dad that hit you? Because I don't know. I feel like everybody's different. My mom was the warning. She gave me the warning. My dad was the hitter. Some people, the dad gave the warning, the mom. Anyways, I knew my dad did it for a certain reason. It's not like I was a child thinking, man, my dad hit me because he enjoyed it. I was a no. It's not like my dad's gonna hit me and he's like smiling and he's like, oh man, this is fun. No. My dad obviously is not gonna enjoy it, but he knows it has to be done. And I'm not enjoying it but I know it has to be, because I know I did something wrong. I remember in 4th grade I pulled a firecracker in class. Or I remember in Islamia we did stupid. You know what I mean? So
honestly, like when it comes to dealing with kids, each
and the whole concept of
the whole concept of
right and wrong,
raising kids, right and wrong. It doesn't necessarily like the parent. It all comes from the parents. It all comes from observing the parents. It all comes, obviously the parents are the ones who, they teach the kids what is right and wrong, what morality is, whatever religion they want to raise them on. That's for so I was obviously a Muslim, so I have a bias. I'm going to speak from like an Islamic perspective. Especially with Muslim Parents.
Yeah.
Because we are second generation, first generation immigrants to this country, many of the parents, instead of raising the kids on a religious foundation and a religious perspective, it's a more cultural perspective.
American culture?
No, they don't raise them on American culture. They raise them on the culture that is back home. That is Egyptian, that is Yemeni, that is South Asian, that is Punjabi. All these different cultures, they want their kids to inherit their culture from back home, and that simply doesn't work, because culture is a man-made thing. It's something, it's a set of traditions that work in this certain country.
Yes.
And so when you only want your children to be raised based on your culture back home and not give them Islamic values, and Islam, because Islam is supposed to be a universal message, right? It's something that lasts across all times, all countries, all locations, all places. So when you're not giving your kids that message, and you're giving the kids of the cultural message, you're bound to have kids who don't have a sense of right and wrong, or no morality, because because culture doesn't teach you right and wrong. Culture gives you a certain
preset.
A preset roles. If you want to talk, it's literally, that's what
the man is supposed to be like this. The woman is supposed to be like this.
And the child is supposed to be like this. No. But that's not what Islam does. Islam does, hey, this is right, this is wrong. Don't cross this line. And when the kid learns that, and then they can absorb different cultures. They'll have no problem absorbing different cultures.
As long as it doesn't counter or clash.
As long as the foundation.
Yes.
As long as the foundation is Islam and the culture doesn't clash with that. So that's honestly, in our community especially, I think that's the biggest problem. It's not that kids are spoiled. It's not that there are parents like that, and those are unique. Like, we can start naming them all day, but I think the main point, like the biggest thing that we need to address is like the foundation you're raising your kids on. If it's not Islam, or if it's not some sort of religious ideal that teaches morality, it's not gonna work. That's my personal opinion, and especially from encountering multiple communities. What's your take?
My take on how parents are raising their children. Well, okay. How long has it been? I know teachers used to be students, right? Like, they had a pounder thing or anything. It hasn't even been 50 years, correct? Yeah. It's been like what?
Oh, like with rulers.
Yeah. I think it's because of schools. Honestly, schools fill their heads with a bunch of things, and now they're justifying things like, gender. They messed with them with the gender dysphoria thing about transgenderism or whatnot. Basis is a school, honestly, because they spend most of their time there, and they pick up most of their things there, and that's how they mostly pick up the culture from other students. Because especially if you're in New York City, there are plenty of cultures, and I think they all clash with each other.
It's like a melting pot.
Exactly.
That's a very valid point. Like, because in schools especially, that's where you see the culture clash. That's where you see the result of your upbringing to your child. It's a good measurement. Like, when it's a good sort of ruler, if you want to put it that way. When you see how your child interacts with school, with other people, when there's a clash of cultures, that's what you have kids bullying. You're gonna have one child bullying another child, one child being unfair to another child. But when you have that moral foundation for your child, you're gonna have a child who's able to deal with no matter where the kid is from, where the other children are from, who they are. They're gonna be able to absorb them and deal with them, in a calm manner, in a moral manner. And I know it's a moral. Using the word moral here is very subjective, because a lot of people be like, what are morals? Well, exactly. Morals for us, we obviously have a bias. We're Muslims, so we know what our morals are, and that might not play out with someone else's. But again, that's the whole idea of morals. We're able to deal with people on our own terms, but in a way where we're able to accept them. And honestly, that's what I think is the best part about our message.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, what is it called? Raising a child, and of course it's the parent's duty. And not that even if a parent raises their child in the best manner, that child could still end up going on the wrong path. You know what I mean? It's up to the child whether they want to choose or not. But again, I would say this still goes back to accountability, just because, like, it depends on how the parent treated them when they did something wrong or they did something right. Like, if they did something wrong, you know what I mean, are they going to punish them, or are they still going to reward them? Are they going to tell them you did something wrong, or are they just going to pat them on the head and say, you know what I mean? I think that's why it's very important. Like, if you learn this at a young age, you're going to grow up, like, understanding not to do this. And some kids, like, they could be the best goody two shoes in their house, but the second their parents are not there, they go all out. So I feel like some people, they like even when I was in Fort Hamilton, unfortunately, I remember like there's some Muslim girls that they used to go to school with the hijab. The second they entered it, they took it off. Basically, they're just like, you know, doing certain things because in the presence of their parents, you know what I mean? So that's why it's more important, I would say. What am I trying to say? I would say it's more important to like...
for the parents, you're saying. It goes back to the parents. Like, for example, like you always see, oh, our generation was this and that and that, and now this generation is weaker. But I think it's the responsibility of the first generation, because their job is to teach the next generation.
No, and teach them, right? Like not only like you're when you tell a kid that this is wrong, and the kid says why, you're not supposed to just shun them and say because I said so. You're supposed to explain to them. So because when they grow up, they're gonna they actually end up wanting to do that thing more just because you said that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
the key word Abu Bakr used was teach, like, you know, teaching a child, not forcing them. So when you give an example of, like, you know, Muslim women or Muslim girls taking off the hijab, the idea is that the hijab needs to be worn, you know, like in Arabic we say al iqtina, from a sense of you know, they need to be convinced that, you know, this hijab obviously we're speaking as men here, so it's like it's a bad horrible bias, but this should be something universal, that, you know, it needs to be something that they want to wear, they want to put on, not something put onto them. And that's honestly a problem, because, you know, many people have this idea of Islam as like, you know, we force our ideals and views on people, and that's not.
I mean, you make your own choices at the end of the day. Like even in the Quran, like when it comes to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, like his duty, like the duty of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, you know, it says in the Quran, وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولُ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ, and the duty upon the messenger says he delivers the message in a clear manner. He was supposed to deliver the message to the people of Arabia. You know, there's some certain obligations that we have to do, praying 5 times a day. We can't eat pork. Women wear the hijab. But like I said, there's unfortunately at times there's people that twist that message. They want to force women to wear hijab, you know.
Yeah, definitely one of the misconceptions about Islam is that, you know, first of all, women's hijab has nothing to do with us as men. A big misconception is that we men force women to do it. Hey, this is not about us. Like, many times you see like the sisters who talk about the hijab, and they talk about how it's a personal journey for them and what it means to them. Yes. And I as a man, like anyone who asks me about the hijab, I would not be able to say it in the way someone who experiences it on a daily basis, who wears it on a daily basis, talks about it. But like, there are Muslim men among in the community in prominent positions who will go up, and for example, I was in a masjid once, and the khatib was like talking, and the sheikh was talking about it was a Friday sermon, all men obviously, and he's talking about, like, you know, how he saw this Muslim girl walking into the masjid and she was wearing tight clothes.
Well, like, can you believe the same thing happens here?
No. So like, he was like, oh, she's walking to the masjid, she has tight clothes, and I asked her, why are you wearing tight clothes? Why are you wearing this? Why are you wearing that? No, first of all, as a man, like the first thing, all the men, like, I look around me, all the guys are like, yeah, what is she doing? Like, but the Quran says, the Quran says, قُلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِم. The first thing is غُضُّ مِنَ الْبَصَرِ, like, you turn away, you don't look. You're the one who's not supposed to look. It doesn't say قُلِ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ cover themselves. It doesn't say that. Why. That's not the first thing it says. قُلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِم, and then the second thing, وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُم, and then cover their their bodies, their private parts. So like, for me, like, when, especially as a young man, like when you hear like the elderly speaking about it, you understand they're coming from a different culture, but we need to change the way, like, and it's definitely that hijab is an obligation and whatever, but I as a man, I wouldn't be able to speak about it in the way that a woman would be able to speak about it, because she experiences it on a daily basis. And the only thing that I will address, like, when it comes to the hijab, is that the misconception that men are the one who force women to do it. No, you can't force a Muslim girl to do anything. Like, just that's the only thing that I will speak about when it comes to the hijab. Other than that, like, we don't even, like, as a guy, any when it comes to da'wah, like in college, whatever, someone asks hijab, go ask Go ask the sister. Go ask
the sister
because she actually experiences it. Like any question about the hijab, like that one of like the kids that I teach asking me about, I go back to my mom like, "Yo, mom, tell me, what do I say?" Like I don't know. Like it's not for us to address, but so like most of these misconceptions, like what you were talking about before, people take our religion, our Muslims, and they own our narrative for us. That for me is a big problem. So something like jihad, there's the jihad of Fox.
Like the news networks.
Yeah, like news networks. There's the jihad of Fox News, and there's the jihad of like, the actual jihad that is a struggle that we go through, and the actual definition of jihad. Wallahi, like when I watch some of those clips about jihad on Fox News, and they're like, these are a bloody people, and they want to take over this. I'm like, yo, these people are gonna come attack us. Who's he talking about? And he's like, Muslims, these Muslims. I'm like, yo, no, oh, that's us. Like, but honestly, like, when you hear, like, just last week, one of our sheikh was teaching us about jihad, and it's not like just fighting. It's the daily struggle.
It's like, let's say I struggle to lower my gaze. That's a jihad.
That's jihad. That's jihad. A struggle that you go through on a daily basis. You have a horrible boss at work, and he mistreats you, and he gives like other employees like better treatment. And you struggle every day to show him kindness and to be respectful. As a Muslim woman who is in a workplace and she has a hijab on, how people look at her, that's jihad. She's struggling in this community, in this culture that doesn't, encourage women to wear the hijab. She's struggling to uphold her Islamic values. That is the jihad that I learned and that I grew up, hearing about. For someone else to come take that narrative just away from you and for you not to have a voice in that. That's a big problem. Like I'm sure there's so many other misconceptions that we can like talk about, and jihad is just one of them.
And that's actually what it's such an interesting fact. Like since these media networks, like they basically get to portray 1.8 billion Muslims. Like they'll show a Muslim guy and then a car bombing. Like, you know what I mean? And what happens is it's the same thing that even I was reading history in Europe when Hitler in Germany, when he riled up his people to go against the Jewish people. What he did was he would have posters of Jewish people with long nails and long hair.
Propaganda.
Propaganda, long nails. And he wouldn't let German men marry a Jewish woman or vice versa.
He isolated them. Yeah. You make them the outlet for everything bad in society.
And by the way, he was the same person. If you listen to some of Hitler's speeches, yes, he was vigorous, and it's unfortunate at times he was eloquent, but he actually did quote the Bible. He quoted verses from the Bible. So just because he quoted verses from the Bible, does that mean he represents Christianity or is a holy man?
Of course not.
Even ISIS, they quote verses from the Quran.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean they're actually following. They're just twisting it so it could go towards their agenda. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and honestly, it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, accountability, where some Muslims will take verses. There's obviously verses in the Quran about our counterparts. The other Abrahamic religions, the Jews and the Christians.
Yes.
And they're gonna take those verses, all right, where وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى, the Christians and the Jews, they're never gonna be pleased with you, and they apply it to them, even though the application of that verse is supposed to be to us as Muslims. How. There was a companion that once told some people who were doing that were using the what's it called, the verses about the Jews and the Christians, and he told them you're doing exactly what the people of the past did. You're taking all the good stuff and applying it to yourself, and you're forgetting all the bad stuff, and so that eliminates accountability completely. Even in our in our Muslim communities,
yes,
it eliminates accountability because I only look at myself and I look at the faults of others, and I'm like, hey, their youth program doesn't have pizza, therefore my youth program doesn't have it. Doesn't need to have it. Well, wait, you should be holding yourself to a higher standard. Exactly. Or you should be trying to offer your youth more. You should be doing this, you're doing that. So again, going back to the idea of misconceptions and accountability. It's a big topic, obviously,
and it really does connect it back to square one, just parents, because what happens is, like, even when I was a kid growing up, hearing bad stuff about, because especially we grew up, what is it called, when 9/11 basically just happened. Right. I mean, I was born in 98. Yeah. 9/11 was 2001.
I was like 2 years old.
Yeah, exactly. So we can't really say we lived during that time. I mean, we still technically did, but our parents were really the ones that went through that shockwave of hate and stuff like that. So as I was just growing up, I still remember in history class, You know, when it came to that day, and we had to read about 9/11, it was by Muslims, and I read all these stuff, and I started thinking, does my religion teach that? That's when I'm supposed to go to my parents and ask them about the stuff. That's when a Muslim, even like when it comes to hijab, like a Muslim girl, you know, she goes to her parents. She asks them about hijab. She asks them about this. Me as a Muslim, I ask my parents about certain topics. But if the parents themselves are not knowledgeable, that's when like it's just a horrible domino effect. Yeah. It's just like they're not knowledgeable, then the child becomes not knowledgeable. Then it just repeats the process. So I would say the antidote to ignorance is knowledge.
Exactly.
Seek knowledge. Seek authentic knowledge. Don't go to Fox. I'm not gonna go for Christianity. I'm not gonna look at the Crusaders or KKK. For Muslims, you shouldn't look at ISIS or I don't know these Al Qaeda, Taliban. It's all unbelievable. Which
it's a horrible game to play, especially people of faith. There should instead of having like interfaith, which you see this sometimes in certain communities.
Which I love there's this one I'm gonna say.
Interfaith initiatives, exactly. Yes, those are so amazing. Like sitting down and having a discussion with like between a priest and an imam and a rabbi. When they have those sort of discussions, it's very eye opening because you realize you're not alone.
There's a lot of connections.
Yeah, there's so many similarities, right? Like if we sit down and play this dirty game of like, hey, you did remember that the Van Gogh bombing, and I could be like, yeah, remember the Crusades, and like, yeah, what about the KKK? Like, we can sit down and play that game all day long. At the end of the day, like, you don't, instead of building a community, a united community, you have this unity that we see on a large scale today. I mean, this guy Donald Trump just got out of office. His whole thing was like this uniting the American people, and it just worked like a charm. He did all the things that we just spoke about, like taking a certain people and making them the bad guys. Islam hates us, or he talks about Mexicans in a certain way. Mexicans are rapists. Like, why? What? Like. It actually, it's effective. I'm not gonna give him props. It's effective in the sense that he's able to, get 74 million people who all of a sudden they're blinded. They're united against one enemy. Yeah. But it's a horrible way of doing it. Just taking someone's narrative and making it not theirs anymore, and just painting it for them.
There's a famous subhanallah. There's a famous quote by, I believe it was by Ibn Rushd. He was a famous scientist during the golden age of Islam. He said, what is it called? Ignorance leads to fear. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to violence. So again, it's just really, that's why I think knowledge is it's a main component into combating this whole system of hate and misconceptions. Right. Like when you want to learn about something about Islam, you should go honestly, even like go to Yaqeen Institute, maybe go to your local mosque. When I want to learn about Christianity, you know what I mean? Maybe perhaps I could ask a pastor. Maybe I could just watch those interfaith initiatives with Ahmad Suleiman. It's just going to the source instead of going to like these third parties that half the time they either make up stuff or they don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, knowledge is very important.
You know what else? Also, like something that the first thing I remember we covered when learning with my Sheikh Akram, like the first thing we covered is not only knowledge, understanding. Because you can have knowledge and use that knowledge incorrectly. That's what happens. The people who make up these misconceptions about others, they have the knowledge. People will know verses about jihad in Islam, or verses that speak about women in Islam. But the way you use it, they misunderstand it, and therefore misconstrue it and cause a misconception. As opposed to actually having the understanding and the knowledge, they're very important to understand the actual knowledge. Al-fahm wal-ilm. Our Sheikh was telling us, ilm is like knowing, I know this table's here. Fahm is like, I know where this table came from, the trip it took from, I don't know, Tanzania. Tanzania, how it was made. It's made out of like carbon fiber metal at the bottom. Like it's like deep understanding of like, I don't know, the craftsmanship of making a table. It's two different things, having knowledge and having understanding. So it's a very beautiful concept, and it's something that's covered, especially in our religion. The concept of understanding it's very rare, but it's covered a lot, in our deen.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, to perhaps wrap up, like there's 1.8 billion Muslims in this world, 2 billion Christians, and I believe 20 million Jews. Like really, it's united we stand, divided we fall. It's better that we learn about each other's face instead of staying ignorant. Because like I said, ignorance leads to fear. One of the main things like I always go back to, like the reason why I love reading history, it's like I still remember when I was reading about when the Muslims had Spain under their control, and it was like Muslims, Jews, and Christians all thriving. It was basically the capital of knowledge. There was Jewish scholars, Christian scholars, and we're hoping to achieve that these days.
Just unity and an understanding, and people actually taking the time to like listen to each other. That rarely happens.
I was talking to Cody about that. I remember the podcast like 2 weeks ago. That like I could hear, let's say between listening here, there's a difference. Like I could hear, let's say, the car in the background, but I'm listening to you. Instead of like some people are just hearing you, but they're not even understanding or listening. They're just waiting to reply.
Some people are waiting to take out something wrong from what you're saying and cancel you on Twitter.
Yeah, they're looking for a flaw, and
it's like they're not here to learn.
So if I were to end off on a quote, I guess the same quote by Ibn Rushd, may Allah have mercy on him, I think it's a very important quote. So he said, ignorance leads to fear leads to hate ultimately always leads to violence. And it's actually even funny, like in the South today, some of these people that are really racist never even met a Muslim. Like, you know what I mean? How can you hate somebody you never even met? That's why, like, even New York City, like, they interact with Muslims all the time. It's like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like 1 million Muslims in New York City. So they're not really afraid of Muslims. Even though 9/11 did happen here, they grew up with Muslims. Like, even when I went to high school and stuff like that. So just engaging with people and going to the right sources. Any final quote you guys want to say?
No, just thanks, Mohammed. Zain. Yeah, honestly, learned a lot. Plenty. Learned a plenty.
My pleasure, my honor. Like, honestly, I'm a big fan of your podcast. I'm not gonna hide that. Like, I'm a big fan. I comment on your trailers and stuff. It's bad. I'm a big fan. Right, but for like I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grow your audience, and it's a beautiful message that every single time it's unique. It's a discussion from two people I love to see, and even the people behind the camera, like amazing individuals behind the camera. I love what you're doing. Always, Jahmi is always, onto something new. Every time I call him, he's like, "Yo, I'm getting married, bro." Like, he's always got a project. He's always got a project, And then after marriage, he's like, "Bro, I'm working on a podcast." I'm like, "Okay." Like, you have my.
We'll be having you again soon.
So. Oh, definitely.
Man.
Yeah. How much are you paying me though?
Well, it's like, but it's coming out of his paycheck. So, alhamdulillah. Wallah, we love you, sake of Allah too.
I love you too, brother.
Thank God it's Friday. Thank God indeed. We'll catch you guys next week.
Awesome.